Hello, hello. My name is Kara Gooch. Welcome back. This is day 2 of 5. Yesterday, we reviewed a couple of items, but today we are going to talk through asking better questions, but also structuring those questions, structuring the questions that you ask. What will you learn today? You will learn to not only deliver from the lens of connection, inquiry, and leading, but you will also learn how to structure the questions that you ask in a way that will lead to the best responses and the best connections. And what I have seen in my lifetime, when I structure questions and I lead them back to one of the outcomes that I want to see, but also lead them back to I genuinely want to connect with you first, that then gives me capacity to be invited into someone's space, to be invited into what they're wanting to deliver in their own work. And so, one thing that I would say about asking the right questions, it has previously led me to sit in a national role at a huge company by asking the question of what support is this community receiving? Or what can support look like for this community? It offered the opportunity for a position to be created on a national team. So today, we are going to walk through a couple of things. We're going to walk through not just asking better questions as we've been doing all this week, but we're going to review and see it from um, the lens of connection, the lens of inquiry, the lens of leading, because we understand, and this phrase is interchangeable. We see on the screen strong apprentices, but let's just say everyone, strong early career professionals, learn better, lead better, connect well, and connect efficiently through asking better questions. We heard yesterday that some may feel that they may be striking out or a fear of failing as they go through the process of being introduced to something new, right? They may feel this fear of striking out because it equates in their mind to a loss of trust, a loss of confidence, or even a loss of opportunity. But if we reframe that lens, if we look from a lens of connection, inquiry, and leading, how might we be able to deliver and show up in these rooms to find opportunities that we once thought were impossible? So, if you are here and you are looking at the replay, type replay for me in the chat, and I will make sure to connect with you. But if there are any questions beyond today's session, then feel free to connect with me on all social platforms. And you can find me at my name, Kara Gooch, Kara, Kara, last name Gooch, Gooch. So let's get into our topic for today. So we understand from the shoes of a listener, we have to present in three different ways. When we consider a question that we're delivering, questions can be structured, questions should have deeper effort, and questions should have direction. So, what do we mean by that? Within the structure of the questions that we present, there are one of two ways that we can go with this, either an open ended question or a closed question. Similar to the graphic that you see under the word structure, we have multiple doors that are closed, but one is open. And when you look at and consider a door being opened when you're positioning a question, it seems as if it is an invitation for the listener to engage with you. And I would agree. That is correct. The way in which we present ourselves and the way in which we structure our questions and we make them open ended, an invitation for dialogue, one to one, or even one to many. The way that we structure our questions will lead to invitations for community, invitations for inquiry, and ways in which we can lead best. As we think about the effort that we put into the questions that we create, ask yourself this: is this an easy question or is this a thoughtful question? So, an example of an easy question could be, let's say, let's start the scenario of you're connecting with someone for the first time and you want to learn what type of business that they hold. What type of business are they a part of? So, if this were an easy question, you can say something like, "So, what type of business are you in?" "Oh, that's interesting. You're in the restaurant business. Great. So, in your recent study of the restaurant business, what has seemed to be the greatest pitfall? Or what seems to be something that you're learning about yourself?" And this is a question that I tend to ask people that I am introduced to for the first time. It's one of my favorite questions to ask in a new encounter is, what is something that you're learning about yourself? It becomes thoughtful because it's not a question that you can just say, "Oh, I'm okay. Oh, I'm doing well." Right? Something that leads to the typical cyclical answers, that can be described as an easy question. But if it is positioned in a way that your listener has to step back for a second and really assess what they're bringing to you, how they're responding to you, congratulations, you just crafted a thoughtful question. And so I want us to think about, in what ways are we shifting the structure of the questions that we're presenting? Is it easy or is it thoughtful? One question framework that I want to present to you and offer to you today is the "and what else?" Similar to the example I recently gave of being introduced to someone for the first time and inquiring about the industry that they work in. And we heard the typical scenario of someone that is in the hospitality or restaurant business. So, with that question of asking them, "What have you recently learned about yourself?" and they then respond and they say, "I learned that I am either struggling with my marketing, or I learned that the best way for me to connect with my customers is to be in to be on site in my restaurants twice a week." uh, and what else? What else have you learned about yourself in that way? Does that make you a bit more tired at the end of the week by being on site twice a week? How interesting. And what else, right? Not letting the conversation go cold in a way can offer you the opportunity to be invited into a deeper connection with the person that you're talking to. The next question framework that I want to present to you, and this was one of my favorites while going through a season of understanding and learning a lot more about design thinking. How might we? How might we find a way to work together? How might we find a way to present this strategy in a way that is not positioned as a disadvantage to those that will engage with it most? How might we find a way around this problem? How might you see a way around this problem that I might not see? And the last way that we can structure questions, we have to be definitive in the responses that we're seeking, right? And the way in which I described how today's session would go, not only are we structuring the questions that we ask, but we're also giving direction so that we can receive responses that, excuse me, that will lead us to the best answer, the best outcome, right? And in order to be led to the best outcome, we have to give direction. We have to be specific. And we'll talk about some application in a few minutes, but when we present a question and we think about what we specifically want, the responses that we're seeking, we have to not only, and let's just go into it, we have to be able to guide others to the answers that we seek. And so this is something that can be utilized during mentorship meetings. Um, I learned in my career a while ago that the best way for me to not only advance in my career quickly and learn the most is by seeking mentorship, seeking someone's opinion, seeking someone's experience, and utilizing that experience as a blueprint. So, who do I want to blueprint my career path after? And if I'm not willing to trade my career path with someone else, are they really qualified to be my mentor? Probably not. In my current space, I serve as a operations manager. However, I struggle in the space of just the admin work, right? And and I was reading this book that compiled a lot of advice from powerful people in their own industry in their own right. And one of the lessons said, seek mentorship, seek out a mentor, and that might be a virtual mentor through the way of social media, that may be an in-person mentor, and sometimes you can find a mentor through the books that you're reading. And through those books, I then found a way to discover and uncover what it is that I needed. However, in that season when I needed to understand what type of admin I would be in my operations role, I found out that my direct supervisor was the best mentor for me. So I was able to guide our conversation and structure questions around what I wanted to see. And so I used the rule of three. And we've heard this before in some of the speeches that we hear, and even in some of the sermons that some that well-known preachers may go on to use. So they structure it around, let's anchor this section of speaking to 3 points, right? That's called the rule of three. So how do we utilize the rule of three and guiding others to the answers in which we seek? We mimic what we want to see. But how? How do we mimic the rule of three when we're not the one, when we as the speaker and not the listener, when we as the speaker are presenting the question to another professional? How do we mimic the rule of three within our questioning? So here's an example of how we can break down and utilize the rule of three. What is one habit I should build now that will help me long term? So let's break this down. If you were to look at that one habit, you see this as a format of a response within the question. So let's focus on what we talked about, the difference between an open-ended question and a closed-ended question. In the section where we're talking about one habit, as we present this and we ask the listener for one habit that offers us the structure of an open-ended question. So that's the first layer that we're focused on here. The second layer that we're focused on here is the effort. And in this case, we're utilizing thoughtful effort by saying, I should build now. What should I build now? right? It's becoming time sensitive. There's a sense of urgency around asking the habit. There's a sense of seeking their advice and wisdom, right? When you're connecting with other leaders, you want to make sure that you are honoring their wisdom by seeking it and extracting it through the questions that we present. And last, as we change the structure of the question that was presented to us, this example, we add in an additional space for us to utilize the rule of three. So the new question becomes, what is one habit I should build now that will help me in the long run? And what are three ways you've recently used this earned skill? So the word skill and habit can be interchangeable here, but the direction that you're utilizing in this space, it becomes lead me to action. Lead me to utilize your wisdom, apply your wisdom, and grow in the process. Because when you're in the midst of mentorship, when you're in the midst of a conversation around mentorship, and that might be in a formal case where you are matched with another professional. And in most cases, for early career professionals, for high school students, for apprentices, when you're in a conversation with someone that has followed a career trajectory that you admire, and you now position yourself during that conversation to be mentored by someone, by creating questions that offer back to the mentor in front of you that I am coming to you and asking you to lead me to action. This then solidifies you as the best person for them to pour into, right? Simply from the questions that you ask. I remember back to a time in my career at Accenture where I started in an industry that I never touched before, right? This was new for me. I was new in the space of change management. And I had a supervisor at the time that poured into me because she knew that I would take not just her wisdom forward, but I honored her experience. And the way that I showed that I honored her experience was through the questions that I would ask her. And by doing so, she then was more apt to be able to pour out because she later revealed, look, I'm coming to the years that I want to retire. And so all that I have in me, I want to pour it out. And so I would like you to be the recipient of that pouring out. No problem. Please give me everything. But in order to be trusted in that way, I had to ask better questions. And by asking better questions, I then structured them so that this mentor can be the one to lead me to action. So, by modeling the rule of three in the questions that we present, we add on to any question that we may have in our minds and present it and challenge the mentor that is in front of us, the leader that is before us, and ask them, what are three ways that you've recently used the pieces of advice that you're about to give me? Because it matters more for me to understand that not only are you a trusted mentor to me, but that you've utilized what you're going to offer. And so I want to end today's session by letting you know that the way in which you structure your questions, the way in which you present yourself as an inquiring listener, it makes you interesting. Did you know that? The way in which you inquire about the wisdom that you want to gain, the way in which you inquire and share your journey with others, it positions you as an interesting party. So With that said, I said that I would share one fact about myself and something that has shocked me, either a question or a statement. So the one fact that I want to share about myself is that I am learning how to create habits of consistency. Um, I've created habits of inconsistency for many years of my life, but in creating habits of consistency, similar to today, what happened where I went live after the 4 o'clock hour that I intended to go live. I've noticed that when things don't fit into the box that I've created, I tend to run mentally. And in my former life, I would have either otherwise made this a reason to quit, made this a reason to say, well, I guess I'm not gonna do that today. But by showing up, by staying consistent, I was able to come on live later than I anticipated today. But it happened, and I'm very proud of myself for completing that. And the question that has shocked me recently is I heard this statement where someone said this is not about a lack of trust. I feel like that statement is the same way in which we may preface a statement like, "I don't mean no disrespect," but it shocks me because I'm able to assess that I received that statement from a posture of offense. And after recognizing that, I then received the response to that statement and with opened arms, similar to the way in which we present the questions that we ask. Are they open ended? Are they closed ended? Are they broadly structured? Are they specific? Are they easy? Or are they thoughtful? Model what you want to see. And by doing so, you will position yourself as a thoughtful leader, as an intentional leader, and as interesting. I'll see you tomorrow and we'll talk more about the way in which you can be an active listener. Talk to you soon. Bye.